Let's dive into some really fascinating work from psychotherapist and researcher Sara Shadabi. We're going to talk about a topic that honestly affects so many of us, burnout. But we're going to look at it through a lens you might not expect, that quiet, heavy feeling of shame that so often rides shotgun.
And this quote just gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? We talk about burnout like it's just being really, really tired. But it goes so much deeper than that. It's that feeling of not just I'm exhausted, but what is wrong with me? It's a direct attack on our sense of self. So to really get this connection, we first have to unpack what shame actually is. Because as you're about to see, it's this silent but incredibly powerful partner to burnout, driving it in ways we often don't even realize.
Okay, now this is such a critical distinction. Guilt is all about your actions. It's I did something wrong. And, maybe you can apologize or fix it. But shame is about your identity. It's the core belief that I am wrong, that you, yourself, are the problem.
And this is where things get really tricky. Because shame's main job, its whole motivation, is to make us hide. It stops us from getting help. So instead of resting, we pretend everything's fine. Instead of admitting we're struggling, we push even harder. And just like that, what should be a simple health signal turns into a full-blown crisis of who we are.
Now, this doesn't hit everyone in exactly the same way. It can be especially, and I mean especially intense for a specific group of people, the high achievers. So let's look at why they fall into this trap so hard. I mean, this is the question, isn't it? If you're someone who is used to being competent, to being the reliable one, why does hitting a totally normal human limit feel less like, well, a normal human experience and more like a deep personal failing? So here's what's going on. For so many high performers, being competent isn't just something you do, it becomes a core part of who you are. Your identity gets all tangled up in your ability to perform. So when your system finally, inevitably collapses from the load, it doesn't just feel like you're tired, it feels like your very identity is failing. And this is the kind of soundtrack that starts playing on a loop in your head. It's not a gentle voice saying, hey, maybe you should rest. No, it's a harsh critic that attacks your character and feeds that deep-seated fear that you're going to be exposed as a fraud. It's a really lonely place to be. Okay, so this shame doesn't just pop up and then disappear. Shadabi's research shows it creates these powerful self-feeding cycles that she calls shame loops. Let's break down the 4 big ones that keep us stuck in burnout. Yep, there are 4 of them. And honestly, just recognizing these patterns in yourself can be a huge aha moment. So let's work through them one by one. The first loop is all about overfunctioning. Shame plants this really toxic idea in your head that your value as a person is directly tied to your productivity. So what do you do when you start feeling exhausted? You compensate. You push even harder. You work faster. You try to prove that you're still valuable. But here's the thing. Your nervous system doesn't see that as strength. It reads it as a danger signal, which only puts the pedal to the metal on the way to a much deeper crash. Loop number 2 is driven by a very simple but very powerful command. Secrecy. Shame absolutely thrives in the dark, so its number one goal is to keep you quiet about what you're really going through. And the result is just devastating. When you hide how you're feeling, you cut yourself off from support, from connection. And the research on this is crystal clear, that isolation just cranks up the volume on your stress, which directly fuels the burnout. All right, the third loop, self-criticism. Now, this one is tricky, because a lot of us disguise this voice as just having high standards. But you really got to listen closely to what it's actually saying. That inner critic isn't motivating you toward excellence. It's creating a constant state of fear and feeling like you're not enough. It's the voice that tells you that if you were just a little bit stronger or a little bit better, this wouldn't be happening. And that just destroys your ability to practice any kind of real self-care. And finally, the fourth loop is a physical one. Shame literally makes you ignore or just push past your body's most basic signals. You stop noticing you're hungry or tired or that you just need a 5-minute break. Wow, I mean, this is such a powerful way to put it, right? When you ignore those quiet signals for too long, your body has no choice but to start shouting. It shouts through exhaustion, through illness, and eventually through a total collapse. It's forcing a conversation you didn't feel safe enough to start. Okay, so we've mapped out the problem, we've looked at these vicious cycles that keep us stuck. Now for the most important part. How do you actually break free? The good news is there's a really practical 3-step framework for hitting the reset button. The absolute first step is this crucial reframe. You have to get this. Burnout is not a moral failing. It is not a character flaw. It is simply a piece of information. It's a signal from your body that your system has been carrying way too much for way too long without enough support. That's it.
So here's the reset. First, you name it, but without the drama. Not, I'm a total failure, but my system is overloaded. See the difference? Second, you normalize it. You remind yourself, you know what? Given everything that's been going on, this response actually makes sense. And third, you translate it. You have to become a detective. Ask yourself, okay, if shame is screaming I'm not enough, what's the real unmet need hiding under there? Is it rest? Is it support? Is it finally setting a boundary?
So let's bring this all together for the final and maybe most important shift in thinking. The goal here isn't to become some kind of superhuman who never gets stressed. It's about fundamentally changing your relationship with the experience of burnout itself.
And this right here is the ultimate takeaway. Trying to fight burnout with more discipline is like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. It just doesn't work. What you really need is a better map, a way to understand the signals your body is sending you so you can respond with a smart strategy, not with more shame.
So I'll leave you with this question to really think about. If you could just press mute on that voice of shame for a moment and instead listen to your exhaustion as pure information, what is your burnout trying to tell you that you really truly need?